ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। मुखं करोति वाचालं पाङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this session of the 108 important shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Today we shall discuss two shlokas from the second chapter. Shloka number 11 and shloka number 12. So shloka number 11 goes like this. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocyananvashocastvam Prajnavadamscha bhashase Gatasu nagadasumscha Nanushocanti pantidaha. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Purport. The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, does not lament at any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. As explained in later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and the controller of both. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology, but he did not know that knowledge of matter, soul and the supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation regardless of the material body. Om Tat Sat. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Brahmanandamatvam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So now in the 7th shloka, what we saw in our previous session, we saw that Arjuna has accepted Krishna as Guru. Correct? He said, Shishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prapannam. Okay? And then from the 11th shloka onwards, now Krishna is taking on that role of being a master, a spiritual master, a guru. So, one thing that is very noteworthy is that Krishna waited until Arjuna decided to accept him as guru. Until then, Arjuna was posing all arguments as an equal or as a friend. That is how he was seeing Krishna, and that is how he was arguing with Krishna, or rather putting forth his points. Let us not use that strong word called arguing, because Krishna is only now starting to speak. So that's not an argument, but Arjuna was presenting various arguments in front of Krishna. And he was presenting them like a very learned man. You see? Normally in English they say, no, a fool will give himself away the moment he opens his mouth. Or in other words, you will be giving the impression that I am a learned man by keeping quiet. Because when we start speaking, if we are ignorant, what will come out is our ignorance, right? So here in verse 2.11, Krishna is chastising Arjuna. And he is chastising Arjuna by saying what? He is telling Arjuna that while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. So, Krishna is making it very clear to Arjuna that your mourning is based on a false premise. Your mourning, your grieving, or all the problems that you have identified as problems, everything is sitting on a wrong base. Like they say, if your basement is weak, whatever you build on top of that, it will fall down anytime. It is prone to fall at any moment. So does Arjuna's arguments now. Why? Because they are based on a very, very false premise. And that is what Krishna is pointing out in this shloka by saying that you are speaking learned words. You are speaking like a big pandit and speaking, what shall I say, in a very scholarly or masterly way. But then, what you are speaking is nonsense. Now, it is very interesting to see that the moment Krishna takes the position of a guru, he is dismantling Arjuna's misconceptions. So, the spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual master, the guru who comes in parampara, his primary task is to dismantle the misconceptions of the people whom he accepts as disciples. Because everybody is thinking, feeling, willing and doing based on so many misconceptions. And all their actions based on those misconceptions are actually the root cause of their problems. All of you would have heard this word, root cause analysis, right? Anything, even in the corporate world, they will say that when you say that there is this problem that is existing in our process or in our marketing or in our product, the first thing is that they will ask, have you done a root cause analysis? So root cause analysis will be done by the spiritual master for the disciple through his instructions. So that is what directly Krishna is getting into. And that is why Krishna is now speaking very strongly also. So it cannot be done, in a very pleasing manner. Srila Prabhupada used to always say that because I am your guru, I have to chastise you. I have to speak to you very strongly because that is my duty as guru. Not that I don't have any love or affection for you. Actually, the spiritual master speaking very strongly to the disciple is a sign of his affection for the disciple. Why? Because spiritual master's affection for the disciple is not based on skin. When I say I like somebody or I am very affectionate to somebody, it is because I have some skin level relationship, right? It is my wife, it is my son, it is my father, it is my brother, it is my daughter, it is my niece. something, all skin level relationships, and we are investing our affection and our emotions, everything there. But when a spiritual master is speaking as the well-wisher of his disciple, it will not be always some rosy words like how we show our affection. And even on our level, when you look at it, if you are a parent, sometimes you have to express your affection by way of chastisement. Why? Because you want the best for your child, because you want your child to grow up as somebody very good, you will chastise them. That chastisement is out of actual affection. There is one very famous personality, or rather infamous personality, who showed affection in the wrong way to his son. Who is that? Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was showing affection in such a way that whatever Duryodhana wanted to do, even if it was wrong, Dhritarashtra allowed him to do it. And that is the great failure of Dhritarashtra, the father, more than anything else. So Guru, his role is to expose the misconception of the disciple. That is why when we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we find that many of the instructions are very sharp, very cutting, smashing our false ego. Why? That is the position of the Guru. And unless we come out of our material misconception, how are we going to understand things as they are? In order for us to have a proper perception of things around us, we need to get rid of our misconceptions. And here, this shloka, Krishna's words are meant to do that exactly, to break Arjuna's misconceptions. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about who is learned, and Prabhupada there very clearly says that a learned man is one who knows that the body and the soul are different, and he does not lament for the body at any stage. Whether the body is a living body or the body is a dead body, the learned man does not lament for it. So, lamentation for either the living body or the dead body is a symptom of our misconception, is a symptom of our misidentification, is a symptom of our ignorance. You see, and that is what Krishna is breaking here. And Prabhupada is commenting that knowledge means to know matter, spirit and controller. Prabhupada makes it very clear that these three things should be understood. That you should know what is matter, you should know what is soul, and you should know who is the controller. So, this is actually again, we are coming back to Vedanta Sutra. The entire Vedic body of literature is actually meant, all the jnana that is contained, all the jnana part of the Vedas are actually meant to help us identify these three things: Chit, Achit and Ishvara. That is matter, Achit; Chit, that is spirit; and Ishvara, the controller. So, identifying these three things as separate from each other, that is knowledge. That I am able to identify. This is only jada, dead matter. And what is giving life to this dead matter is the presence of a spiritual spark, which we call the soul, Atma. And then we know that above this matter and above this Atma, this spiritual spark, there is a controller or Ishvara. You see? So this is actually knowledge. And this knowledge is what is required for us to progress any further in any spiritual pursuit. First level, this understanding must be established. And in shlokas 11 of this chapter, which we are discussing now, until shloka 30, it is establishing this jnana of knowledge of the body and the soul. And it is this jnana or this jnana shastra is considered to be higher than the dharma shastra that Arjuna is speaking about. You know, Arjuna is basically speaking dharma shastra. What is he saying? He is saying that I will get sin, I will incur sin, I will commit sin, I will kill people, we should not kill because society will be affected. So these are all part of dharma shastra. And dharma shastra is one level below this jnana shastra. So Arjuna, although speaking something from dharma shastra, because he is ignorant about this knowledge that Krishna is speaking about, his dharma shastra propositions are all considered to be useless. You see? So it does not matter if we speak something that sounds very scholarly. If that scholarly speech is not based on sound fundamentals, however scholarly we may sound, in the end of it all, the discerning listener will understand that this is simply hot air, what we call, you know. And this is what a lot of people are engaging in actually. But if you read the purports of Srila Prabhupada, you will be very easily able to distinguish between somebody who is speaking hot air and somebody who is actually speaking philosophy. Because what Krishna is speaking in the Bhagavad Gita is the highest philosophy. And he starts from the building blocks of that philosophy up to the topmost level. That is how he takes Arjuna through this entire body of work called the Bhagavad Gita. Right from the basics up to the highest. Right from verse number 12, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam athaf para. This is the 12th shloka. The translation of which is, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So this shloka is very closely connected to the previous shloka number 11. Now, Krishna is pointing out to Arjuna that his lamentation is baseless because of this. And because of what? Because of Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam athaf param. That is, there was never a time when I did not exist. There was never a time when you did not exist. There was never a time when all these kings did not exist. Nor in the future shall any of us cease to exist. So what does it mean? It simply means that, O Arjuna, now we are talking about all these sinful activities incurred by killing all these people, and immediately he is connecting that argument to the most basic understanding of spirituality, which is shloka number 12, Natvevaham Jatunasa. That directly Krishna is coming into the subject matter by saying that I always existed, you always existed, all these kings always existed, and in future also we shall continue to exist. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks from the Vedas again directly. In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishad, as well as the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities in terms of their different situations according to individual work and reaction of work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is also, by his plenary portions, alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to perfect and eternal peace. And Prabhupada quotes from the Kathopanishad, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhatati Kaman Tamatmastham Yenu Pashyanti Dhiras Tesham Shanti Shashwati Netaresham. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their conditioned and in their liberated situations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. Prabhupada, in many places like this, he will quote directly from the Upanishads, so that tomorrow nobody should say that, okay, Bhagavad Gita is okay, but what about Upanishad? Somebody may say, do you have any support of Shruti Vakya? So you may tell them that no, Bhagavad Gita is, Sarvopanishado Gao. Then they will say that is only an opinion. What is there directly in the Upanishad? So, in order for us, for any reader to become convinced and to convince other people, Prabhupada quotes this particular shloka from the Kathopanishad, which says, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhatati Kaman. So, this verse very clearly means that there are innumerable Nityas, Nityo Nityanam, and there is among them one Nitya is there. Among all the conscious Chetanas, Chetananam, one supremely conscious person is there. Eko, that one supreme person, that one supremely conscious eternal being, Savidhatati Kaman, that supreme eternal one, that one supreme eternal being is providing for all the other Nityas. You see? This is very, very important for us to understand. That if somebody asks, where is the Upanishad Vakya which speaks about the eternal nature of the living entity? That is what we are asking about. Okay? Because why? There is the argument that in conditioned state, Jivatma is separate or it has a separate identity, and in the liberated state it has no separate identity. In order to break this argument, where Krishna very clearly says that, what does he say? he says that natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhiba na chaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam athaf param. So he says na bhavishyama, even in the future you continue to exist. You don't cease to exist as the individual person that you are. So Arjuna, your individuality is not going anywhere. And neither is the individuality of all these kings who are assembled here. Their individuality is also not going anywhere. And I am also there always. I was there in the past, I am present here now, and I will continue to exist in the future. And that is corroborated by Srila Prabhupada by quoting this particular verse from the Kathopanishad, showing how that supreme eternal person, that one supreme eternal, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. So that one Eka, Bahunam, of everyone else, he is taking care. He is maintaining. He is giving all the requirements of all the other Nityas, this one Nitya. You see? So, and then Prabhupada continues. He says, the Mayavadi theory that after liberation the individual soul separated by the covering of Maya or illusion will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence is not supported herein by Lord Krishna, the supreme authority. Nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in conditioned state supported herein. Krishna clearly says herein that in the future also the individuality of the Lord and the others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. See, Prabhupada again uses the word Upanishads here. We must always remember that Prabhupada would never speak anything in vain. He has a very clear idea to communicate to his readers, that from the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking to that individual called Arjuna. Krishna, that supreme individual person, is speaking to the individual person called Arjuna, and both their individual personalities are existing forever. The only thing that changes is the various bodily coverings of the Jivatma through the different births. That is the only thing that changes. What you are, that never changes. You see, the external appearance changes for the living entity, but for Krishna, even that does not change. That is why the Brahma Samhita says that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Satchit Ananda. His form is Sat, eternal, Chit, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And that Divya Rupam of Krishna, you know, even Narayana Bhattatiri in Narayaniam, he speaks about the Divya Kaishora Vesham. That is how Narayana Bhattatiri saw Lord Krishna, Guru Vairappan, you know, while writing the Narayaniam. So he says Divya Kaishora Vesham. That means transcendental boy of Kaishora age, you know, young boy. So that is how Krishna is always. Nava Yauvanam Cha, Brahma Samhita says. So this personality traits of Krishna is very clearly given by the authorities. It is not that is some manokalpa, you know, manokalpitam. It is not manokalpitam. Who in the entire creation can imagine a form as beautiful as Krishna, you tell me? Can you? Do you think it is possible for any fallible human being to imagine that, okay, it is like this, he is Shyama Sundara, imagination, he is Tribhanga Lalitam, imagination? No. Krishna, the supreme absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, in that Divya, in the transcendental form of His, the transcendental personality of His is eternally existing. It is not some formless thing and you are thinking, oh, for my mind to concentrate, I need a form. I am telling you, there is no bigger nonsense than this argument. Simply because not even the most imaginative person in the entire manifested and unmanifested creation can think of a form so beautiful. Just think about it. And think about each and every creation of Krishna, how beautiful it is. And just think whether any fallible living entity can design something as beautiful as one flower that you see in the nature, with its texture, with its color, with its fragrance, everything. Nobody can do all these things. And then what to speak of imagining a form of God? No. His beautifully transcendental form and His personality is eternally existent. We must take this understanding right in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, studying Bhagavad Gita is a complete waste. So, Prabhupada is establishing this right in the beginning and he is quoting from Upanishad. So that don't come and ask me for authority. I am giving you authority. I am quoting directly from Shruti. You can take all your arguments elsewhere. So, Prabhupada continues. He says, this statement of Krishna's is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subject to illusion. If individuality were not a fact, then Krishna would not have stressed it so much even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual but material. Even accepting the argument that the individuality is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms His individuality in the past and confirms His individuality in the future also. He has confirmed His individuality in many ways and the impersonal Brahman has been declared as subordinate to Him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If He is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then His Bhagavad Gita has no value as authoritative scripture. A common man with all the four defects of human frailty is unable to teach what is worth hearing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all its importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and therefore it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. And after condemning the bodily conception of the living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Srila Ramanuja and others. Prabhupada. First, Srila Prabhupada establishes using the Upanishad Vakya, and then he goes on to speak how the actual value of Bhagavad Gita is established simply by the fact that it is spoken by Krishna, who is Swayam Bhagavan. And if you think that anything that has individuality and an individual entity is material, then by that argument you are bringing Krishna down to a material level, and then the Bhagavad Gita loses all value. And it cannot be. You see? And then Prabhupada now quotes from another Acharya. Prabhupada says that this has been corroborated not only in the Shastra, not only corroborated in the Upanishads, also established as truth by great Acharya like Ramanujacharya. So, first he gives directly referring to Shruti. Shruti reference is given, Upanishad. And now he is giving reference of Acharya. He says, great Acharya Ramanuja has also accepted that this Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has his individual personality. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that the spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking on a bottle of honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is a most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations made by the Mayavadis and warned that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as mentioned above. So, Prabhupada is very, very clear as to how he wants to establish this eternal truth of the eternal individuality of the spirit soul, of the Atma and of Bhagavan. And very clearly that when the Atma becomes Muktatma, it will merge with Paramatma. It is absolutely wrong. And that is established by Krishna himself in this verse. And Prabhupada is further re-establishing it by using Kathopanishad Shloka and also by pointing out the fact that it is something accepted by the great Acharya, Srila Ramanujacharya. And all those Mayavadi arguments that are normally given are all collated together by Prabhupada in this purport. That all the Mayavadi arguments, what are the Mayavadi arguments? Individuality existing only in conditioned state. That means as long as you are Baddhatma, you are individual. When you become Muktatma, you will merge. And that is refuted by Krishna himself by saying that Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhiba nachaiva na bhavishyama. So Krishna says that always you were there, you are here, always you will be there. Krishna did not say that you were there, you are here, you shall merge. He could have told like that, no? But he did not say. He said, you were there, I was there, all of them were there, we are all here now, we will all be there. We will all continue to exist. So where is the question of, merging? Where is the question of becoming, dissolved into the Paramatma? As if Paramatma is a solvent and you are the solute, and then this together becomes a solution, as they say it in chemistry, no? You have a solute, you have salt, and then you have water, solvent. You put the salt into the water, then mix it. You cannot see the salt anymore. It becomes one with the water. But nothing like that happens to the Atma. The Atma cannot dissolve into something because you are eternally existent, Baba. Where is the question of you dissolving into something? You are not salt, nor are you sugar. You are Atma. Your individuality exists. And even if you try to negate that individuality for some time, it will have to come back. Right? So, just this argument that Baddhatma only you are individual, Muktatma you will merge, wrong. Finished. And Krishna's statement has to be considered as authoritative because Krishna is not subject to Maya. Why? Because Krishna's abode is called Maya Atita Paravyoma. Krishna's abode is mentioned in Shastras as Maya Atita Paravyoma. That means the transcendental realm which is beyond Maya. So he is a master of that and he is a master of Maya. How can he be under Maya? How can he be under the four frailties of the human being? He cannot be. So his word has to be taken as authority. And what is the other argument of the Mayavadi? Individuality is material and not spiritual. If you say individuality is not spiritual, then how can you distinguish Krishna's individuality? Right, then that means you would have to say that Krishna also has no individuality. But Krishna in this verse again, he says, I was there. Correct? See, we must understand, Natveva aham, Natveva aham, Jatunasam, Natvam neme Janathipa. Correct? So, Krishna very specifically says, me, you, and the kings, so that there is no doubt. The shloka where he speaks to Arjuna is spoken in this way so that there cannot be a doubt. Correct? If Krishna has used something like all existed before, all exist now, all exist future, that all can be, it can be interpreted in so many ways. But here Krishna says, I existed, you exist, they also exist. Not that tomorrow all of you are, grains of salt, all of you come and gets dissolved into me. Nothing like that. That argument doesn't hold good. And then what is the other thing? That the plurality mentioned in this verse refers to body. That the plurality of us, all the people together, it is not speaking about the body. Why? Because already the bodily identification has been condemned in the previous verse by saying that you are lamenting for something that is not worth lamenting. And what was Arjuna lamenting for? Arjuna was lamenting for, killing all these people. And killing means what? Killing the bodies. And immediately Krishna is refuting that Arjuna's point by immediately saying here that all of us are always existing. That means the body doesn't matter and you are actually worrying about the body. So that has already been rejected in the previous verse. So then how that will become the subject in this verse? It cannot. Prabhupada makes it very clear in the purport. And then individuality is referring to the empirical universe. If individuality is actually referring to the universe, then Krishna need not teach us anything, no? Right. And then Prabhupada comes to the crux of the matter. Prabhupada says that all these rahasya, you would have heard the word Gita Rahasya. That means the hidden truth of the Gita. Many people speak about it. The hidden truth of the Gita. And Prabhupada says that it can be understood only by devotees of Krishna. The hidden truth of Bhagavad Gita can only be understood by the devotees of Krishna. For the rest of the people, it is simply like licking the honey bottle from the outside. That is, if you do not have even a little devotion for Krishna, you will not understand the rahasya that is in the Bhagavad Gita. The secret that is in Bhagavad Gita. The secret of surrendering to Krishna. The secret of doing devotional service to Krishna. That will never become revealed to those people who have no devotion to Krishna. So Prabhupada is using the example of you have a bottle of honey and you have no way of opening it, and you are trying to taste the honey by simply licking the bottle from outside. Although you can see the honey inside, but because you have no way to open it, you will never be able to taste it. So this is also a warning for all of us, that we should not let the Gita Rahasya be like the honey inside the bottle which we are unable to open. The Gita Rahasya that is within the Gita should not become unapproachable like the honey in the locked bottle. So, a person who really wants to taste the honey, what should he do? He should find ways to open the bottle. So this Gita Rahasya can be opened only when you approach the Bhagavad Gita with devotion. Only when we approach Bhagavad Gita with the clear understanding that it is spoken by Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is spoken for my well-being. With this understanding, when we approach the Bhagavad Gita, then the Gita Rahasya shall become revealed to us. So it is very, very necessary for us to understand Bhagavad Gita through the explanations of the wonderful Vaishnavas who are actually devotees of the Lord. Their exposition may not be very scholarly, but they will have the crux of the subject matter. Whereas somebody else's exposition may be very scholarly, but he will be simply blowing hot air only. You understand? That is, if somebody is explaining Bhagavad Gita, the philosophy inside it, by removing Krishna out of the scene, he may sound very scholarly, he may quote from Upanishad left, right and center, but no use. If you take Krishna out of the Bhagavad Gita, then the Bhagavad Gita is nothing. But you keep Krishna in the center of Bhagavad Gita. And if you simply remember how wonderfully Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, that itself is good enough to gain a decent understanding of the Bhagavad Gita. This we see in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He meets that Brahmana who is unfortunately illiterate, and he is sitting with the Bhagavad Gita in Srirangam. Mahaprabhu sees him and he is crying profusely. Tears are coming out of his eyes, this poor Brahmana. He is sitting and he is holding the Bhagavad Gita upside down. Then he will turn it around, then he will look, then he will again cry. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approached this Brahmana and asked him. He told him, you look like a wonderfully knowledgeable Brahmana. Why are you shedding tears? So the Brahmana said, my Acharya told me that I should study the Bhagavad Gita. But I have no means to study it because I can't read and write. I am a very poor Brahmana. Unfortunately, I don't know anything. But because my Acharya, he ordered me that I should do it, I have this book. And every time I think of how merciful my Bhagavan Krishna was, that he became a charioteer of Arjuna. He took such a lowly position for his Bhakta Arjuna, and holding on that lowly position of a charioteer, he spoke this entire Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And whenever I think of the extreme mercy shown by my Lord to his devotee, I start crying. I am not able to control myself. So Mahaprabhu told him that you are the greatest student of the Bhagavad Gita and you have understood the Bhagavad Gita like nobody else has. you have understood the mercy of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. That is the best understanding of the Bhagavad Gita. So, through Prabhupada's purports, from this one verse, we understand how Krishna, taking the position of Arjuna's guru, is beginning to smash Arjuna's misconceptions. And the first smash he has given directly to that weak foundation of Arjuna's argument, called the bodily affection. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita Granth Raj ki jai.